Rockstar has consistently proven themselves to be at the top of the food chain when it comes to curated single-player experiences. Whether it's about climbing the hierarchy of organized crime, becoming the rootinest tootinest cowboy west of the Mississippi, or a literal ping-pong game, Rockstar simply doesn't miss. All the more reason to be upset that we never got that GTA 5 DLC. A former dev recently came out to confirm that a DLC starring Trevor was about halfway complete before being cancelled to focus on GTA Online. On one hand, it's frustrating to learn what Rockstar does best was pushed aside for an online casino. On the other hand, the billions of dollars GTA Online made could possibly result in the best single-player experience ever made when GTA 6 drops next year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm here to look to the past, not the future. I found one of my favorite games when experiencing GTA 4 for the first time earlier this year. Spending weeks walking around calling everyone asshole in a bad Eastern European accent and just reflecting on the time I spent as Niko Bellic, running rampant on the streets of Liberty City. You can imagine my excitement when I learned that there were 2 separate DLCs for GTA 4. And you can imagine my disappointment when I also learned that you don't play as Niko in either of them. But people in the comments said they're just as good as the base game, so I decided to play through them anyway. The initial thought of taking on a fresh protagonist took the wind out of my sails at first. I had just spent upwards of 30 hours establishing a connection with Niko, learning about his motivations and goals. Sure, on the surface, Niko is just a madman killing anyone who gets in his way. But throughout the game you learn that he's a man fueled by vengeance. He has a strong sense of duty, and his only mission is to find the man who betrayed him and his friends, leading to most of his friends being killed. And in the end, Niko finds no peace in killing the man responsible. Now, we take the helms of 2 new protagonists that each have their own path to forge in Liberty City, yet are both still so intertwined in what we experienced in the base game. The Lost and Damned was the first GTA 4 expansion to be released, focusing on the biker gang wars. You play as Johnny Klebich, the vice president of the Lost who has been temporarily running the gang while President Billy Gray was in rehab following his arrest. Our first run-in with the Lost was in the base game when Niko kills one of the Lost's members for Mikael Faustin for the sin of dating his daughter Anna. The Lost and Damned picks up right as Billy is getting released from rehab and taking back control of the motorcycle gang. As acting president, Johnny tried to keep the peace between the Lost MC and the rival gang, the Angels of Death, even enacting a truce between them. But Billy has other plans, immediately showing how unhinged he is, turning to violence every chance he got and forcing the gang into a war with the Angels. There is a strong disconnect between Johnny and Billy. Johnny's willing to resort to violence if necessary, but his focus was much more on running the Lost MC as a business, keeping money flowing in so the gang stays up and running, and looking out for his brothers. Johnny had a strong sense of duty when he was the acting president. But Billy's return has the Lost resorting to bloodlust and tearing down their enemies instead of protecting their own. And you can tell that Johnny's having a hard time with this, even though his sense of duty forces him to follow Billy's orders. The tension between Johnny and Billy are shown immediately and continue throughout the Lost and Damned. Billy comes in barking orders and demanding to know why the gang hasn't gotten his bike back. He shows how little he respects Johnny by always bringing up Ashley and how everyone in the gang has gotten a piece of her. Ashley was Johnny's girlfriend, but became a drug addict and things just didn't work out. You meet up with Ashley later in the story as we save her, and we see her struggling with her addiction. Johnny still clearly cares about her, but knows that being with Ashley isn't good for him, so he keeps her at arm's length. But seeing Billy so quick to throw it in Johnny's face that Ashley's gotten around the Lost MC shows us what we're dealing with. Maybe Billy's just jealous that Johnny's been the acting president, afraid that the gang may have enjoyed him as their leader, and wants to just knock him down a peg to remind him who's boss. Regardless, Billy's a real prick, and even though he's calling the shots now, it's evident that Johnny isn't too thrilled. Billy's bloodlust hits the next level when he brings the gang to an Angels of Death hideout to murder them all. His excuse is that they killed Jason, a bold-faced lie since we know Niko killed him, and Billy even mentioned Jason was killed by a Serb before changing his story. I might as well steal their heroin while we're here. Johnny doesn't agree and tries convincing Billy that stealing the heroin's a bad idea since the entirety of the Angels are going to hunt them down if they leave with the drugs. Just another example of Johnny putting the safety of the gang above all else. But Billy just tells him to stay in line. We then run into some familiar faces when looking for a buyer of the heroin we just stole. Elizabeta found us a buyer, and we see Playboy dancing in the living room before she introduces us to Niko, who's coming along with us to make sure the deal goes smoothly. Since we already did this playing as Niko, we know it's all a setup. But it's nice seeing the situation from Johnny's point of view instead of Niko's. It is essential world building, and is part of why Rockstar is so good at this. We already know Niko's story. We played through it in its entirety. And while Niko's climbing the ladder of organized crime, Johnny has his own hood rat shit going on. It's a reminder that the world goes on around us, even when we aren't there to see it. The world of Liberty City we knew is so interconnected with the world we are experiencing now, and it helps me appreciate playing as Johnny. I was initially disappointed playing as a new character, but situations like this where we run into Niko shows us that he's still out there causing all sorts of chaos, and we know exactly how that story goes. But back to the heroin problem. We go back to the clubhouse to see Billy arguing with Jim about what to do with the H. Turns out it belonged to the TLADs, run by the Chinese. Billy says fuck him and wants him to buy it back from us, because of course he does, and Johnny actually agrees. The feds are on our asses with Mr. Stubbs blackmailing us into doing his bidding, and we're back at war with the Angels of Death. So Johnny just wants to offload the drugs and move on. Jim's argument was that we should strike a deal since the TLADs aren't a group you say fuck him to. Even though it seemed like we agreed with Billy on this one, he forces Johnny and Jim to make the exchange since apparently they were the ones pushing for it. Unfortunately, Jim was right. The TLADs had no intention of buying back their own drugs, and started shooting before running off with the H. On our way out, we see Billy get arrested and blames us for setting him up. Great job watching our backs. Heading back to the clubhouse, Brian thinks we set Billy up because we want our spot back as president of the gang. Johnny thinks that Billy sent us into an ambush, and it all ends with a splinter in the group. We head off to take out some more Angels of Death, but after, Brian calls us in for a truce. The talks get heated, and we end up gunning down all of Brian's little faction, with Brian getting away. We're now back as president of the Alderney chapter, or at least what's left of it. Just Johnny, Jim, Angus, Terry, and Clay. It seems that everything Johnny was trying to avoid when Billy came back has come to fruition. The end of the truce with the Angels of Death has led to continuous bloodshed, and the Lost looking more like a group for Sunday morning rides than a biker gang. And it doesn't end there. Ray Bulgren wants this internal fighting over with so we can get back to doing jobs for him, so he gives us Brian's location. Terry and Clay help us scare Brian out of the safe house and take him out. All loose ends have been handled except for Billy, but he can rot in jail for the time being. We team up with the Rice Burners to take out some snitches for Elizabeta, and Johnny wasn't too enthused about leaving so many bodies. The next job she gives us is to pick up her drug mule from the airport. When we show up, Martha is being taken away, and we again need to blow shit up to make our escape. At least there's some funny commentary on the way back. It's interesting how Johnny was seemingly so against unnecessary violence as the acting president, at least that's what we're told, but now that Billy's behind bars again, Johnny is president and we're still running through tons and tons of bodies. Johnny's quick to put the blame on Billy for the gang's troubles, but things don't seem to be any different when he's gone. It's a good reminder that just because Johnny's the protagonist doesn't make him the good guy. We're all the good guy in our own story. And that's why Rockstar's stories are so interesting. They always feature a flawed protagonist, navigating their own moral compass to the best of their ability according to their own understanding of right and wrong. But the more things change, the more they seem to stay the same for Johnny. Next up, Elizabeta sends us out on another coke deal gone wrong. The buyers try getting away without paying us, which results in absolute chaos once again. And things just go from bad to worse. Elizabeta and Marta tell us to stay away because the feds are tracking them. Ashley calls us trying to get us to meet with Ray Vicino, and the feds are calling us from secured lines telling us that one of our brothers is talking since we wouldn't. Ashley puts us on with Ray, and it all comes full circle. He wants us to steal diamonds from someone that goes by Gay Tony. The infamous diamonds brought over on the boat Niko Bellic arrived on, and were featured all throughout the base game. We call for some backup and roll up on Gay Tony making the exchange. We're spotted, forced to chase down the diamonds, kill the buyers, and stash the diamonds in trash bags where Niko's left to deal with them later. I always wondered how they ended up in the trash. For a gunslinging biker boy, it seems odd that Johnny's okay with not getting paid until Ray can sell the diamonds and get his cut. That seems like a mortal sin in the world of organized crime. But before we think too much about that, Ashley comes calling again for our help. I can see why this relationship never worked out. Ashley always getting herself into trouble and then calling Johnny to bail her out. This time, she owes Dmitry Raskolov a lot of money. Someone we've learned you don't want to be on the bad side of. In order to save her from being killed, we're forced to kidnap Roman Bellic and deliver him to a warehouse for Dmitry. We are again directly intertwined in events we previously experienced with Niko, and it's so intriguing to see the events from the other side of the coin. Niko and Johnny are more or less strangers, but in the world of organized crime in Liberty City, it's poetic to see how closely they've worked with and against each other in different instances. Johnny even references meeting Niko when he kidnaps Roman. Once we've delivered the package, we get a call from Ray and we ask for our diamond money. But first, he needs us to go along and make sure the exchange goes smoothly. So we meet up with Niko to sell the diamonds. Good thing he doesn't know we just got done kidnapping his cousin. Another time we get to experience the same cutscene but from a different perspective. But this time, I recognize the guy that blows up our deal as one of the guys working with Gay Tony when we stole the diamonds. We grab the money and shoot our way out alongside Niko, but after we make it outside, Ray's guys try to gun us down. It's not really clear what happened here, but we're forced to hunt down all of Ray's men so they can't tell Ray we got out with the money. We give the money to Jim and call Ray to tell him we don't know what happened to it. Jim has us meet him at Ray's and things start to blow up in our face. I feel like I'm living through 8 Mile when Ray tells us he fucked our girl, and he's burning our closest friend with a torch. But we get the upper hand and make our escape. On our way out, Ray says Billy was right about us being backstabbing fools, which means they've been in contact. When running away with the money, it kinda seemed like we were betraying Ray. But knowing Ray and Billy were working together, it seems more likely that Ray was planning on double crossing us the whole time, and was just playing nice until the perfect opportunity. We fight off Ray's hitmen and run off to Ashley. Jim's dead, and Ashley lets us know that Billy was the one pulling the strings. He's talking to the feds and trying to pin everything on us. Johnny's world is officially falling apart. From the lost MC going smoothly, keeping our noses clean, and the gang prospering just a short time ago, to everything spiraling out of control. Most of the gang's dead, and it seems Johnny has nothing left. Ashley tries to be there for us, but we tell her that she belongs to the Crystal. We push her away and turn to all we have left, the Congressman, Mr. Stubbs. Mr. Stubbs tells us that we don't need to worry about Ray, but that Billy's been talking in prison. He thinks he can pin a drug ring on us, putting us away for 15 years and him escaping under the witness protection system. Not if we have something to say about it. Stubbs tells us to figure it out, so we gather the boys and storm the correctional facility. My instincts tell me there has to be a better way to take out Billy than blowing down the front door of the prison. Like, couldn't we pay someone inside to just take him out? Well, I guess we're committed now. We shoot our way to the prison yard, take out the reinforcements, and send Billy on the highway to hell. All we have left is one last ride with the boys back to the clubhouse. Johnny and the Lost MC reflect on their journey together as part of the gang, and then we burn that bitch down. What a wild ride and fall from grace for Johnny. We started at the top, acting president of the motorcycle club, keeping our boys safe and money flowing for the Lost MC, and ended literally storming a prison, killing countless guards that just showed up to do their job that day, just to take out the one man we blame for all of our troubles. In a way, Johnny and Billy aren't that much different, both willing to do anything or kill anyone in their way to get what they want. But now that it's over, Johnny finally found peace. He cut Ashley free from his head, he's the president of the Lost MC, and all the bad memories can now be left behind. The likes of Jim and the clubhouse are gone, but not forgotten. Overall, The Lost and the Damned was awesome. It added a lot more context to events we learned about in the base game, but didn't actually get to see, and we're starting to understand the full picture behind the diamonds that everyone is so eager to get their hands on. But there's still one more piece of the puzzle for us to experience. The Ballad of Gay Tony was the second and final GTA 4 expansion to be released. Here you play as Luis Lopez, the second in command for the man who runs the nightclubs in Liberty City, the infamous Gay Tony. As Tony's personal bodyguard and business partner, Luis is a loyal employee doing his best to keep Tony's business afloat while the nightclub scene is seemingly on the decline. Tony doesn't make it easy either, continuously doing copious amounts of drugs and making bad decision after bad decision. Luis has to balance this with his personal relationships. His mom is constantly badgering him about doing something more with his life, and his friends feel like life in the club scene has changed Luis for the worse. But even with the serious tone, the Ballad of Gay Tony is much more lighthearted, with the introduction of Brucey's somehow even more annoying brother Maury, and possibly my favorite GTA character, Mr. Arab Money himself, Yusuf Amir. This expansion felt like a final playground and catalyst for us to experience Liberty City just one more time. And Luis is about to have his hands full. The Ballad of Gay Tony starts off right in the middle of arguably the best mission in the base game, again tying in the DLC with events we've already experienced from a different perspective. Little did we know our playable character was right in front of our eyes the entire time. We give the cops our explanation of what went down during the bank heist, and we're off to explore Liberty City. We almost get splattered by Niko, and we see Johnny rolling around the city, further showing how indirectly interconnected the lives of these three characters are. We make it to Tony's place and immediately learn about his drug habits, the financial struggles of the clubs, and just how reckless Tony is. Despite having just gone to the bank for Tony, there's a ton of cash lying around, and conveniently, some of Gracie's family stop by and take the money as payment on a loan. A loan Luis wasn't even aware of. This all goes to show that despite being our business partner, Tony's calling the shots, and he doesn't always fill us in on the details. A poor way to run a business. We stop by one of the clubs with Tony and are introduced to two of Luis's childhood friends. As we take them home, we scold them on their livelihood of selling drugs. Luis pushes them to get out of the game and telling them they'd be better off slinging meat at Burger Shot. Joke's on you, Henrique is a 76 IQ. They won't hire him for anything but washing dishes. And they don't even use dishes at Burger Shot. This is clearly a nod at the times, with the Ballad of Gay Tony releasing in 2009 and the world still feeling the effects of the Great Recession of 2008. It was a time of uncertainty. Everyone was struggling. Getting a job wasn't easy, and maybe you had to wash dishes at the Burger Shot to get by. And even if you had a good job, your company probably wasn't doing well and the future was uncertain, as shown by Luis being Tony's assistant for the struggling nightclubs. And if you couldn't find work, it's time to work the corners and start slinging them drugs. We get a cameo from Billy showing him actively setting up Johnny before we meet with the TLADs, and end up having to shoot our way out. Now it's time for a glimpse into Luis's home life. We walk into our mother's house and are greeted by Mr. Santos. He immediately brings up how there aren't any pictures of us around the house, hinting that we have a rough relationship with our mom. Mr. Santos loaned her money and now it's our job to pay off her debt. We scold our mom, telling her she could have come to us for money, but she's nervous about how we would have come up with the cash. She doesn't approve of our line of work, doing hood rat shit, dealing with drugs and violence, and doing whatever necessary to get what we need. And now, we end up having to clean up her mess either way. Immediately after handling that, we move on to Luis's relationship with his childhood friends. We see them dealing drugs, and doing it very poorly. We let them know it's obvious what they're doing, and any cop could spot them a mile away. This escalates into them throwing insults at us, and accusing us of running away from our neighborhood to go work with Tony. We stop by Mom's, and she asks us when we're going back to school, further showing everyone's disapproval with our life's decisions. It's funny how no one seems to like us working for Tony, but then we're on a mission with our friends, the ones our mom actually approves of, and we end up in a shootout with the police. It seems like Luis is trying to escape the world of dealing drugs and fighting for scraps by running parties at the club, but the people in his life are just dragging him back in. On one hand, it seems like Luis is trying to better himself and actually have a real career. On the other hand, the life Luis is running to continuously leads to drugs and violence as well. But I guess that's just life in Liberty City. While we were out dealing with our family and friends, Tony's business dealings are going from bad to worse. Tony owes Rocco a lot of money, and he's planning on burning down the clubs for insurance if we don't handle his union problems. So we end up having to take out a few guys by blowing up a construction site, a train, and a private jet. Then we get whored out by Rocco, forced to seduce Monique, the girlfriend of Vic Manzano, who owns the Bahama Mamas. And unfortunately, Vic shows up while Monique is blowing our mind, and we end up having to kill Vic and the rest of the security team on our way out. Then we're forced to go with Tony and his asshole druggy boyfriend Evan to buy the infamous diamonds. Here, we again get to play through the same mission but from a different point of view. Immaculate world building. Johnny and the Lost MC crash the party, and Evan runs off with the diamonds. Unfortunately, he's killed and the diamonds are lost for now. Tony's heartbroken, and while we wait to hear the next step on the diamonds, we're forced to deal with Maury, another guy we need to help out to try and repay Tony's debt. Maury is the older brother of Brucey, the most insufferable accomplice in the base game. And believe it or not, Maury is even more annoying. Maury's the same gym, tan, laundry looking ass that Brucey is, but turned up to 11. And he's a little midget. We actually see Brucey here as a timid, self-doubting little brother, severely lacking the confidence he has when meeting Niko. Maury's missions are similar to the Brucey missions we played already, killing rivals, winning races, and stealing cars. After our final mission for Maury, we're finally squared up on Tony's debt, and we get to tell Maury off. We motivate Brucey to rock him in the face, and he's finally humbled. It was so nice to see someone finally shut him up. But I'm a little upset that I was the one who turned Brucey into the intolerable prick he becomes. We also get a chance to meet Yusuf, always listening to Arab Money by Busta Rhymes, and is the living incarnation of that song. He's got daddy's oil money, plans to build cities upon cities, and lives a life full of hookers and blow. Remember when I said that the Ballad of Gay Tony felt like a playground? Yusuf's missions totally encapsulate those feelings. Everything Yusuf asks from you just feels bigger and more chaotic. He has you stealing helicopters, blowing up yachts, stealing a noose tank, and ending with an explosive finish by taking a moving train straight off the tracks. Yusuf is just a privileged brat with more money than sense, looking to get his hands on the items money can't buy. Every mission for him is lighthearted fun that gets Luis deeper and deeper in over his head. And nothing brought a bigger smile to my face than walking in to see him dancing along to Arab Money. But back to the diamonds. Tony hears they're being sold to the Libertonian, and now it's our turn to crash the party. As always, it's great seeing this exchange from a different point of view, using Yusuf's chopper to get to the top of the building, slipping in to steal the diamonds and fly away. You'd think things are starting to look up, but Tony's having a little mental breakdown after hearing Gracie was kidnapped. We were the ones who kidnapped Gracie when we were playing as Niko, and now that we're on the other side of the coin, it's time to save her. We take the Ancelotti helicopter to follow the kidnappers back to where she's being held. In the meantime, we do a few missions for Ray Bolgren until he turns on us. The diamonds we bought were stolen from Ray, and so he's out to kill us now too. We go to trade the diamonds for Gracie, this time from Gay Tony's perspective, and Ray's goons try to break up the exchange. We escape with Gracie, and we hope that's the end of the diamond fiasco, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Rocco calls us to meet up and explains that Ray and Mr. Ancelotti wants either Luis or Tony's head for the kidnapping of Gracie and the diamonds. Rocco wants us to kill Tony since he'd rather work for us, so we go back to the club and settle this once and for all. Luis seems like he's about to betray Tony, but instead, we kill Rocco's friend and tell Rocco to get out of here. The Russians are coming, so we kill Ray's men and protect Tony, and this leads us into the final mission. We tell Tony to go into hiding and destroy all of Ray's heroin trucks. Now we need to take out Ray before he flees the country. We race down to the airport, and our favorite Arab helps us take down Ray's goons along the way. We get on the plane, kill Ray, and parachute down to safety. We have a little run-in with a homeless man, knocking over some trash and leading him to find Ray's diamonds, before meeting up with Tony to make amends. We did it. We saved Tony's life, we saved the business, and we survived to see another day. And that brings us to the end of our journey in Liberty City. Never in a million years did I think that GTA 4's DLC would live up to the base game. After building such a strong bond with Niko, it seemed like a long shot that I'd care about playing as two new characters. Gameplay wise, the two expansions are just more GTA 4, but that's all it needed to be. The base game was incredible, and I didn't need anything else to enjoy more time doing hood rat shit in Liberty City. But the stories behind The Lost and Damned and the Ballad of Gay Tony were so much more than I expected. The way we got more context behind missions we've already played, and a story that had already been told just tied this package up into a neat little bow in such a magical way. It proved Rockstar could handle juggling 3 playable characters, and it was a stepping stone for what Rockstar ended up doing in GTA 5's main story, being able to switch between 3 protagonists anytime you wanted. The way that Niko, Johnny, and Luis's lives intertwined in such subtle ways flowed so seamlessly and is honestly some of Rockstar's best work. If you haven't given GTA 4's DLC a shot, it really is a must play if you loved your time with Niko. But that's it for me. If you want to hear my thoughts on my first ever GTA 4 playthrough earlier this year, you can click on the video on the screen now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.